morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Children Come First. We're here every Tuesday from 10 to 11 a.m. on WAAT 750 a.m. And we bring you interesting people from around the country who talk about children, education, and all aspects of family living. Today we have Sandy Hurst. Sandy is director of Upattinas School in Pennsylvania. She is director of the Resource Center for Homeschooled Youths. She's the director of the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools. She's the director of a teacher education program. She's a consultant in the United States and abroad. And do you have any time to breathe, Sandy, with all those things that you do? How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm just fine.
I have to say that Sandy is, I know personally, and Sandy is one of the most extraordinary people I know. I admire and respect her tremendously. And last Friday, I was at the graduation exercise for the seniors at Upattinas School, and I was so moved by the ceremony. It is so different and unique from many of the graduations that you normally see in a regular traditional school setting. Sandy, will you tell us a little bit about Upattinas School and how it started?
Well, the name will help you to understand how it started. Upattinas means that we school at Tina's house, which was up on a hill. Tina was the nursery school teacher for many of the children who began with the school, and that was in 1971. It was 3 nursery school teachers and moms who sat together in my kitchen having tea one day and said if we could do this ourselves, we would, because we really wanted more freedom, more open experiences, more play-oriented learning for our children. And when Tina said, well, if the other 2 of you will do the administration work, you can use my house or the downstairs of my house, we jumped, and Barbara and I said, we'll do it. Then we got a little bit scared because we knew that this might have an effect of dropping our children out of school for a year if able to create a school, but we decided that that couldn't be bad for our particular children. They were all going to do just fine with or without the schools in which they were. And so we invited groups of people who might be interested in more freedom, more openness in education to come and join us in planning and trying to create a cooperative, family-oriented school for a small group of youngsters. At first we thought from grades 1 through about 6, but in short order we had 5 young people who were 7th and 8th grade who desperately wanted to be included, and so we said, okay. We met.
Where is Upattinas?
Upattinas is located currently in the address of Glenmore, Pennsylvania. It's in the northwest corner of Chester County, just where it meets Berks and Lancaster County. And it includes students from school district Westchester, Downingtown, Coatesville. It's that general area of Pennsylvania.
Sandy, your school is so incredibly unique with regard to the infrastructure and the way children learn. Can you give our listeners a little bit of information on how you are different? For me to describe it, I couldn't possibly describe it. I think you probably do it much better than I.
Well, different ages are a little different. Our youngest group, which encompasses from kindergarten through what would normally be maybe 6th grade, is a real free school. The children are completely free to come and go to learning at their own pace, their own choices. They have a period of meeting each day where they come together to remind themselves and each other of what's available for the day and to solve problems if they need to, or to give suggestions, often to share ideas and thoughts and stories and items they may bring from home. But they are otherwise, during the day, completely free to choose either academic or other kinds of activities, or even to play for the whole day. As the children get older, in 7th, 8th, 9th grade periods of time, they are more involved in creating activities that they do together. They may do together with teacher people. They are invited to join in anything that's happening for the high school students that they would like, for example, foreign language classes. And because those things are scheduled according to the needs of older people, the staff members and students, they then begin to structure their time. That becomes more and more sophisticated as students get older, but they are always invited to come to learning at the time that they are ready, at the time that they want to. No child is ever coerced into learning in any way in this school. Teachers are available as helpers and friends, as well as people who teach fundamental skills and more esoteric kinds of things. There's a lot of hands-on activity, a lot of outdoor experience. We are blessed with a wonderful property that allows us woods and stream and meadow and grasslands, as well as a building that includes a gymnasium. So we have a wide range of activities available for our students. Another thing that's unique about this school is that it is a parent cooperative, and that means to us that all parents are invited to take part in decision-making insofar as they are able and interested in being a part of our superstructure of board of directors and parent meetings. And they are all invited to help within the school as much as they are able. We have a very large possibility of work trade for tuition trades and scholarship arrangements that allows us to have a kind of diversity that we continue all the time to struggle to get more of. But basically, this is a school where people control their own learning, where the participants are in control of the whole superstructure, where we live within what we like to call and work hard to develop a partnership structure, so that even though it may be said that I am the director of the school, and because of my history, I may know a lot more than many other people do about what and how we do it here, does not mean that I am more important than any child or any parent involved in the school. I do not have any more power of the vote, for example, than any one of them.
I noticed on Friday that your group of seniors is about the most diversified group I had ever seen in my life, and definitely individualistic. Now, you had many students there from Japan who were graduating. Tell us a little bit about your Japanese students.
We have several different ways of having Japanese students or students from any foreign country come here. We do have approval to give the I-20 form, which allows foreign students to go to school in our school, and that helps students from other countries get a visa that allows them to be here for a full year rather than just for a short period of time. We have a school in Japan named Nomugi Open Community School, which is located in Yokohama near Tokyo. And that school was designed about 9 years ago to mirror a lot of what we do for Japanese students. The parents, the people who began that school were parents of two young women who came here as boarding students in the late 1980s. And as they saw their children grow, they decided they needed to create such a school in Japan. So they created a school which is a 3-year high school program for younger high school students, which allows the student to have a year of orientation and learning in the Nomugi school, and then to come to this country for a year under our auspices. Those students who complete their year in this country and then go back to Japan for the remainder of this school year, which ends next April, their school year goes from April to April, those students then receive a diploma from our school as well as from Nomugi School. A school like theirs in Japan, which is an alternative school, is not sanctioned by the government. Students are allowed to go to those schools, but the government will not recognize a diploma from their school. So if they have a diploma from our school, which is licensed as a private school in Pennsylvania, they then can take their transcript to further schooling. And in fact, in the last year, we have had 3 former Nomugi students who have been admitted into higher education programs in Japan with the diploma structure that we have. So
amazing. It's not accepted in their own country, but if it's from our country, then it's accepted. Let's look at the word alternative. You use that word several times. Most people think of alternative as at-risk students. What do you consider the word alternative to mean for Upattinas?
Well, for Upattinas, it means different. It means that we are different from the other schools that are available in our area. And we find that it is difficult to lose that label, even though it has been somewhat co-opted by schools that are specifically schools for at-risk students. In many ways, all students are at risk of some kind or another. And some of that risk has to do with the fact that they are so large and so impersonal. Our feeling is that students need to have many different kinds of alternatives from which to choose. We are one of those. And this alternative offers small, personal, loving, caring, community-based learning as opposed to those that are meant to fix kids who are broken or to take children out of the mainstream who cannot be contained within the mainstream. Our students come from many different backgrounds and many different interests. You said that you saw a diverse group in the graduation. They are indeed. We had about 10 people who were homeschooled, who did most of their work on their own. We had 2 who were young mothers who dropped out of school so that they were able to have their children and nurture their children in a more holistic kind of way. We had one who is going on to the military, and that is the reason that he came to us. He needed to finish what he had not completed in high school in order to do that. There were a lot of students who will go on to colleges. They will go to a lot of different kinds of colleges all around the United States, from Marlborough in Vermont to Reed in Portland, Oregon, to Oberlin, to Antioch. And then there were a number of people who are musicians who will go into the world of music or into the world of art as artists, practicing their skills and testing their skills, who may or may not continue on into higher education, may do it from a practical point of view. A good many of our students are very interested in computers. There are some who are world travelers. A number of them are going to travel for a year or 2 and then decide where they're going to go on. So alternative for us is an opportunity for young people to make choices.
You're listening to WAAT 750 AM on your radio dial. This is Dr. Daria Brzezinski with Children Come First, and today we have Sandy Hurst, Director of Upattinas School in Glenmore, Pennsylvania, Director of Resource Center for Homeschooled Youth, Director of the National Coalition of Alternative Schools, and Director of Teacher Training Program. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this, but the individuality, I'm so grateful to you for telling our audience about the intelligence level of the students who graduated, because I wanted to let them know about what our eyes saw. For example, the young lady who wore a dress of duct tape, and the gentleman who had a bright red suit on, and another one who had an all-white suit on with a white baseball cap and white shoes. They were all so uniquely different, and yet they were all extraordinary in their own individuality and intelligence. Many of them got up, and I think the thing that I noticed the most was the fact that each one of them got up to talk about their gratefulness and how thankful they were for the kind of education that they received. And a lot of them had testimony about you and your openness and your ability to work with them, and I think that's a tremendous accolade from your students. Most students don't even get that opportunity. I wanted to talk to you about what is the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools?
Okay, first I need to correct you. I am not the director of that organization. I am the director of its teacher education program.
But I am the National Coalition of Alternative Schools?
Yes, but I am on its advisory board as having been a former president of the board. And so the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools is, in fact, international organization now, which is an organization that's grassroots, having grown from the need of people who were creating schools similar to ours during the early part of the 1970s, late 1960s, who needed to find community, people with whom to share. It's a networking organization that has a board of directors and two people who act as office directors, one for internal affairs, which takes care of the kinds of things that office people do, like publicity and newsletters and such things, and one who is an outreach coordinator for taking care of trying to develop the diversity of the coalition. It is a group of schools and communities who include homeschooling resource centers, some communities that are living communities, which include schools of their own, and many schools that are similar to ours in various ways.
Now, I know that the coalition, I was supposed to attend this, the National Coalition had their conference the week of Littleton in Colorado, right down the road from Littleton. What kind of an impact, what did this have? Here you are, a diversified alternative community who students participated in your conference, parents, teachers, directors from all over the country. Were they public and private school people, and what were their response to what happened in Littleton?
They were public and private school people, although many more of us are private than public. The response was incredible shock and pain. I can't tell you how many people spent at least the first day pretty much in tears and anguish over what had happened so close to us. Then there was, of course, some anger and some anguish about the fact that we are here, a small group of many struggling small organizations, trying to show people that schools do not have to be so large and so impersonal, have young people become so alienated that they have no other alternative than to do what those young people did. We don't feel as though we have all the answers. We don't think for a minute that it's impossible for something like that to happen in our schools. But we do believe that given smaller, more personal kinds of schools and communities for young people to grow in, that it is less likely for that to happen, and more likely that we will be able to intervene sooner because we know our children better. The students who were at that conference are all well known by the adults and feel comfortable and trusting of the adults who work with them and who spend time with them in their schools. And so the buildup of anger doesn't seem to occur as often or as violently. The other thing, of course, is that most of us do a great deal of work within our schools that includes conflict resolution, skills in mediation, interpersonal skills, working together in meeting systems, in democratic meetings. And so the children have a voice and are allowed to speak out. Just as our students could speak out in terms of the way they dressed at their graduation, students in all of these schools and communities are able to speak out, even their anger and their pain and their emotional upsets, without feeling as though their lives are in jeopardy or their grades will be in jeopardy. So you're not as likely to have that kind of anger build up. But the anguish that people felt up on that mountain during the time of those days was real and palpable. People came together to send messages, to write a press release, to talk with each other. It was a poignant thing that happened that Yehuda Fine, who has written a book called
Sandy, for some reason we're getting breaking up. Would you move closer to your speaker on your phone, please? I don't know why, but the sound level is breaking up.
All right. I'm talking about the fact that at our conference at the time of Littleton, we had a keynote speaker whose name is Yehuda Fine. He is from New York, and he wrote a book called Times Square Rabbi. He has done a great deal of outreach work in the most difficult sections of New York City with runaway teenagers. And people hung on his every word, even those of us who have been successful in working with children and had more success than failure with our high schoolers, and the parents who were with us wanted to know everything that he could say to us about how to help to avoid the kind of violent confrontation that occurred in Littleton. And
what was his name again? What was the
Yehuda Fine, F-I-N-E.
Now, I'm so grateful to you for giving us a little bit of a comparison to the alternative schools, the community alternative schools, as opposed to our traditional kinds of schools, and one is size, and I concur with you that that is a dramatic factor in why we have a lot of violence in our schools. And you also build, it sounds to me that part of what the National Coalition does is to build trust and communication skills and interpersonal skills, which are also in dire need in our traditional schools. First, before I forget, if someone wants to reach you and talk about the National Coalition or Upattinas School, do you have a phone number or email that they can reach you, or address?
Yes. Our phone number here at Upattinas is 610-458-5138, and they can reach us during the summer even here. It's not a problem to call here because we have people in the office pretty much all the way through the summer. The National Coalition, I have the address. I don't have the phone number handy. It is NCACS, 1266 Rosewood Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104.
Okay. And if you would like any information from us, you can call us here at Children Come First. Our phone number is 570-639-2931. That's 570-639-2931 for any information about any of our broadcasts or any of our speakers. Sandy, before we take a break here to talk to our sponsors, how does a school become involved in the National Coalition of Alternative Schools?
If they send a note to the address I just gave at the NCACS office, Alan Bernard, who is the director of that office, will send a packet of information, including one of the newsletters, and they can thus become involved at either an associate membership level, which might be a family or a single person, or at a school level, which would be an organization that would be a voting member organization of the National Coalition.
Okay. Now, the National Coalition's function is to group people together. Let's talk a little bit about what kinds of people. Let's talk a little bit about your gatherings.
All right.
And the kinds of information that people can get from your conferences. You are very different philosophically from traditional schools as far as learning takes place. Is that correct?
Yes, in many ways.
And can you give us a little bit of in the next 3 minutes, and we'll continue with this conversation after our break. Can you give us a little bit of information on how you see learning take place in the classroom versus the traditional model?
Well, part of what happens is that in the classroom in all of our schools, there is a lot of discourse and a lot of hands-on activity. For younger children, math is going to include many things that they manipulate, many things that they work with. It may include cooking experiences or measuring experiences or a trip outdoors or a trip in which they may work with the gasoline mileage. It's always going to be linked to life skills and practical skills. Even as children grow, and I'm using math as an example because it's usually thought of as such a linear sort of learning, even as they grow in our classrooms, for example, the classes are small. There are maybe 6 or 8 students in a single class, and therefore the child cannot get lost if they have difficulty learning a particular concept in algebra, for example, because the teacher will see it and so will the other students. The students work together, they teach each other, and they are multi-ages, and so they're going to be somewhat on different and able to work together with each other. The other thing that happens in our classes is that there's a great deal of discourse. People talk with each other about ideas, about things they've read, things they've learned in other venues. They bring them together and they share them in a much more discursive sort of way, in such a way that teachers can understand where the child's understanding is, where the gaps are, but also young people can teach the teachers, and they are respected both as teachers and learners. All of those things we find help a great deal with the actual cognitive learning skills, the growth of the ability to communicate.
Now, we are about to take a break for our sponsor. You are listening to Children Come First. This is Dr. Daria Brzezinski. We're here every Tuesday, 10 to 11 a.m. on 750 a.m. WAAT on your radio dial. We are here today with Sandy Hurst, Director of Upattinas School, advisory member of the National Coalition of Alternative Schools, and Director of their Teacher Training Program, Director of the Resource Center for Homeschooled Youths. We will continue with another half hour of discussions on alternative education and not necessarily meaning at risk, as soon as our sponsor takes care of talking about what they do best. Sandy, hold on for a minute and we'll be right back.
Okay.
So, fishing again?
Yeah, Mom.
With Ted and John?
Well, there's only a few weekends left before college starts, so...
You know what? I'm not really doing anything right now.
Wait, Mom. The last time you came with...
Yeah, I caught more fish than Ted.
See? You were way too competitive.
Oh, wait a minute. Aren't you supposed to catch fish?
Well, some, yeah.
Oh, and I caught more than you, didn't I?
Well, hey, what about Dad?
Oh, he'll be at the hospital for some tests.
Tests?
Yeah, he'll never know we're gone.
What kind of tests?
Hey, I am kidding. Look, I don't care how old you get. You are still my little boy.
Oh, Mom.
And, oh, boy, while you're away, I'm going to miss you so much.
You really want to go fishing, don't you?
What I really want to do is spend some time with my son before he goes away and becomes an adult and gets married and has children and becomes president of the United States and only drops by on holidays. Is that too much to ask?
Ted's going to kill me.
Family. Isn't it about time?
I'll race you to the truck.
See, there you go again.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
A community of friends, but not to be in the public school systems. We also have many sports programs that include our homeschool students in basketball and soccer, for example.
Now, this, how do you do that? Are you able to give the student a high school diploma? Do they follow core curriculum and a guide?
There is a set of guidelines. They are expected to complete the number of credits required by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in any school, and we work with them on a one-to-one basis, seeing them approximately every 6 weeks during the year as they are going through their high school experience. They are able to create their own independent study for any subject area or to work by portfolio. We have a young man, for example, this year who graduated by portfolio, did an intensive study of China and of the growth of technology in China. He was able to have a trip to China, to do a great deal of research, to take a few college courses in his neighborhood, and to bring all of that together, write about it, and include it in an analysis of his preparation to graduate from high school, present it to our high school group, and be approved for graduation through that process here. We also serve students who live far away, who may do their work through corresponding either by email or by mail or fax with members of the staff here who become their support teachers.
That sounds extraordinary. What kinds of parents homeschool their children? I mean, are they parents who are disillusioned with the system, parents who want a religious education for their children?
They are all kinds of parents. We have parents who have children who are at risk in some way, and they have recognized that if they continue in larger schools, they will be lost and their learning will be affected. We have other parents who are, for religious reasons, choosing to take their children out of schools. Sometimes they're afraid because the school in which their child would normally have to go is a school where there is too much violence, too much anger, and they feel that their child may be at risk in that way. Some of them are parents who recognize in their children particular gifts. For example, we have any number of young people who come to our program who, because we are in an area where there is competition ice skating training, they may be ice skaters who are at some level involved in competition ice skating. Their main need is to be on the ice in the daytime, and so they gather their books and take them with them and work with tutors while they're on the road, and we overview their work when they come back. We have young people who are musicians who spend most of their days working on their music, taking lessons, working with friends in bands, concertizing, getting ready to prepare an audition for, say, Curtis Institute of Music. They need the time to practice in the day when they're fresh. This doesn't mean that they don't also need to do academic work, but for many young people, if they are able to follow the thing that is most important in their lives, music or dance, for example, the doors then open to getting the academic work done in much less time than they would in school. They don't have as much homework, and they're able to center on their arts, not leaving behind the fact that they need to learn math and science and so forth, but fitting it in when it's more appropriate for them, or when they're on the road traveling to a program or something of the sort.
It seems to me that you use time in different ways for your students. Can you explain a little bit?
Well, we do, because we believe that learning takes place everywhere you are. And so if you're out on the basketball court playing with your friends, you're learning. If you are going to a concert in Philadelphia, you're learning. And so we legitimize as much learning as we can possibly do through the general life of a student. A child who is cooking with their mom at home, helping to make the dinner, helping to take care of the house, helping to take care of younger children, is doing every day and learning every day a lot of the stuff that is formalized in classrooms and called home economics. But they're doing it just as a natural course of their lives. We're here to confirm that all of that is valid and legitimate learning, and to find and help the child find a way to formalize that in such a way that it can be used as part of what we call their life skills learning.
Recently, Al Gore, the vice president, talked about using the term lifelong learner, and it seems to me that you have already concluded on what a lifelong learner is by the mere fact that you acknowledge every moment in a child's day as the learning process, which is much different than traditional school, which only acknowledges fractions and parts of bits and pieces of knowledge and bits and pieces of learning experiences.
That's correct. We also recognize that there are many more teachers in the life of a child than only those of us who have certification called teaching certification. The man down the street who works on his motorcycle is probably a much better motorcycle mechanic and teacher if he likes the child who comes to watch than somebody who is in a classroom trying to control 30 people all looking over their shoulder at the motorcycle. So we consider that man a person who is a valid teacher. The mom in the home, the dad in his office, all of those people are teachers. We have to remember, for example, that it is the parents and the neighborhood who teach our children to speak, and that's one of the most complicated things anybody learns to do in life. And none of us are certified to teach children to speak the language that is their native language.
That's a very good analogy, an excellent analogy. You do through the National Coalition, you do a teacher training program. How is that different than the teacher training programs that exist today for traditional teachers? I mean, you're now talking about teachers as everyday people in life. How do you train teachers to teach in your philosophical premise?
That program is a 9-month, a year-long internship, which means that the intern teacher is literally in the trenches working with people who do this kind of work every day and working with children, all the while that they're learning to work with the children. And so that's a hands-on program in the same way as our schools are hands-on programs. Excuse me. So those young people, mostly they are younger people who do that program, are they select a school from among the schools in the coalition. They have a fairly long reading list that they're expected to choose from and to work with as they are doing this work. And they, in talking with the people in the schools that they will go to, of course, read the books that are the most informing books for each school. Each of our schools has a slightly different philosophy. We all have the basic tenets of the National Coalition as our guide, and those include the democratic process and non-coercive learning and teaching for justice and freedom. But some of us may be more inclined toward a Summerhillian free school approach, and some of us may be more inclined toward something that looks more like the Ted Sizer Essential Schools approach. We cross a very broad gamut of styles of learning, so the student who is the intern teacher looks for a school that is compatible with their particular interests. But during that time, they will have a mentor from among the staff of that school who works with them very closely and helps them to look at what they're doing and what the effects of what they're doing are, how they feel about it, how the children feel. They also, during that 9 months, take 1 month as an alternative where they go and visit a contrasting school, so that, for example, someone who is working in, say, the meeting school in Ringe, New Hampshire, which is a Quaker boarding school in our coalition, might want to go to Tallahassee to the grassroots school and take a look at a Summerhillian-style elementary day school that is very different from their first experience, so that they're able to see some of the broadness of the differences among us as well as what is similar among us. They, in the end, create a portfolio which includes a project and a synthesis paper and a number of book reviews. and there is a committee from the National Coalition members who overview that ending process and portfolio, and a certification is granted from the National Coalition that says that they are ready to teach in our schools.
That is definitely a very different process than our teachers are trained in. You are listening to WAAT 750 AM on your radio dial. This is Children Come First with Dr. Daria Brzezinski. We are here today and every Tuesday. Today we are here with Sandy Hurst, the director of Upattinas School in Glenmore, Pennsylvania, Director, Resource Center for Homeschooled Youth, on the advisory board of the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools, and director of the teacher training program for those. You can reach her at 610-458-5138 for any information that we have talked about here on the program today. Again, her phone number is 610-458-5138. And the address of the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools is 1266 Rosewood Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104. Sandy, who's the director of the coalition these days?
Well, there are two directors. One is Alan Bernard, who is at the office of the address I just gave you, and he does the office coordination and internal affairs. And the other one is, I'm going to forget.
Oh, that's okay.
And she is in Chicago and does the outreach work for the National Coalition.
You'll think of it.
Mary Beth Welsh is her name.
Mary Beth Welsh. Okay. Now, let's go back to talking about the learning process in our last 15 minutes here and the kinds of things you do and the alternative community schools do in general. You talked about having students, first of all, some of the unique things are that parents are involved. In all of the alternative schools, are all parents involved?
Not always. Some schools are in places where it's not as reasonable as it is here for parents to be involved, and sometimes parents really don't want to be involved. Now, there are schools where it's required that parents are participants. Ours is an example of a school that does both. We don't require it, but we do invite it, and we do have many ways in which parents can be involved and in which they can be rewarded for that involvement through having work hour credits toward tuition. So it depends on the school how much parents can be involved. We happen to have a number of staff members who are parents of children who are here. So.
Now, what does parent involvement mean at Upattinas?
At Upattinas,
yeah.
That a parent may come in and help in the lower school for a day a week or for part of a day, or they may come and teach classes. For example, we had a class in local geology last fall that was taught by a parent of one of our students who is himself a student in graduate school at one of the local universities. It could be that they come and help to drive the vans to take the children to the horse farm, which is a weekly occasion for our elementary school students. Or they might come and do the work that keeps our computers online and working in their after-school hours. They may also be carpenters and painters and helpers who do fix-up and building maintenance.
Now, you also spoke about the control factor as far as learning takes place for students. This is dramatically different from the traditional classroom where the teacher takes control. Don't you have a lot of chaos that goes on when you allow students to take control of their own learning?
Well, actually you don't. Sometimes people might think, if they look at, especially in the elementary school, a group of students who are outdoors playing, building a fort, that may be a chaotic kind of learning. But if you sit quietly and watch what goes on over a period of a few hours, you're going to see a lot of threads of different kinds of learning, and you're going to see a lot of social organization that is created by the opportunity to do this. For high school students who may make choices about what they learn and when they learn it, you then see young people who are actively involved in finding venues for their energy, finding ways of learning that contribute to what it is that they want to do with their lives. And ultimately what we find is that if you wait long enough and you watch closely enough, almost every young person does learn the things that those of us who are adult and believe it should be in order learn. They may not learn it in the order in which we learned it, or they may not learn it as soon as we learned it, but they will learn it in a much more rich and broad and deep way than perhaps we did.
You know, I like you using the word deep, because what we have mostly in traditional education is breadth rather than depth.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hear you saying is that your educational model of learning is much more depth than it is breadth.
That would be true. And partly that's because we really do believe that spreading things out over too many categories or into too many areas is to thin down the understanding of the fundamentals of subject areas. On the other hand, if a student chooses to go into an esoteric period of thinking about a particular subject, let's say someone gets very involved in history and they run across the ideas of a person like Krishnamurti, and they want to study that person's ideas, they are able to take off on that tangent and study those ideas and come back and talk with the teacher in a quasi-tutorial way, and so they can broaden and go in many different directions if that comes up for them, without it being something that takes away from their doing what is intended, because that is able to be encompassed as a part of their learning. And so the teacher might say, why don't you do a study of that? The rest of the class will go on with what we're doing. Come back and share with us when you're finished with your study, and we'll bring you up to date about where we are. So we have the opportunity to individualize that way because we're small enough, and we set our programs up that way.
Sandy, for me, has been the encyclopedia of knowing all the kinds of new books that are available in learning strategies and anything else regarding the way children learn. Sandy, for our audience, would you mind giving us some books that you would consider supportive, supplemental types of books that would help them understand the kinds of learning processes you're talking about here?
Well, I think I would almost rather give you some names of some authors and resources. For example, many of our schools are based, and our homeschool programs are, many of them based on all of the various writings of John Holt. Everything from his early books like How Children Learn and How Children Fail to his later books like Teach Your Own. We are also, many of us, if not disciples, at least respecters of the work of A.S. Neal and the work of the Summerhill School in England. And those are kind of historical heart books for us. George Dennison's The Lives of Children is another one of our historical pieces that many of us hark back to. But there are also the writings of Jonathan Kozol, which don't talk so much about schools specifically, but about the injustices that are occurring in the schools and that we find so horrendous and that we are working so hard to counter. There's a book by Grace Llewellyn about homeschooling, and another one called Freedom Challenge about African American homeschoolers, which is a whole other area of interest that many people are opening up now. I particularly find the work of Herb Cole, who is a public school educator in California, both challenging and enlightening. And I, many times, if I'm looking for philosophy and background philosophy and freedom and justice, go back to the works of Paulo Freire, Freire, who was an educator in Brazil. When I'm looking at specifics about writing and reading and cognitive skills, I look at Frank Smith as somebody whose writings contribute a great deal to our understanding of that process. Those are just a few. There are so many people, Joseph Chilton Pierce, for example, who write about the growth and development of children as whole human beings instead of people who need to be trained as in bits and pieces. And the journals of holistic education are other things that I think are very important. Encounter magazine is one that I read a great deal. I hope that helps you out.
Were there any other periodicals that you would recommend? You said the Journal of Holistic Ed and Encounter Magazine. Are there any specific?
Encounter Magazine.
Are there any specific to education?
Well,
I mean, I know Encounter is.
Encounter is. There's Growing Without Schooling, which and Homeschool, Home Education Journal. Both of which are important for homeschooling. There's the Journal of Family Life that comes out of the free school community in Albany, and that's another one that I think is pretty important.
So you gave us a great list here to start with.
That'll get you going. And each one of those is going to give you resources in other directions.
And
I have found the telephone number for the main office of the National Coalition, and I would like to give you that.
Go ahead.
All right. It's 734-668-9171.
Repeat it again.
734-668-9171. That's the Ann Arbor office where most of our information can be obtained.
And she is speaking of the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools, 1266 Rosewood Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104. The director there is Alan Bernard. And if you'd like to reach Sandy Hurst at any time, you may reach her at 610-458-5138. That's 610-458-5138 at the Upattinas School. And that's also the location of the Resource Center for Homeschooled Youths. And if you'd like to find out any information about any of the people in our broadcasts, you may call us at 570-639-2931. Now, Sandy, we have about 4 more minutes left on our broadcast. Is there anything you'd like to convey to our audience in summation?
I think less specific information and more the idea that it is possible to find ways to have your children learn to love learning and to learn in a joyous way through a lot of the things that we've talked about today. It is also possible to know that your children can go to college and university and on into very successful venues in life, either with or without a high school education in a standard sort of way, that they need to be encouraged to find their own way to learning and to find the joy in learning, and every parent and every teacher can do that. You have within you the skills to do it. If you are the parent of a child, you need to develop the confidence and belief in yourself and in your child so that you will help them to find that joy that many of us who are lifelong learners know is there to be found. If you have faith in the child, if you truly love the child, you will find a way to help them grow and learn in a joyous way.
Well, we definitely have learned a tremendous amount about the alternative, not meaning necessarily at-risk venues for children. And Sandy her school is in Glenmore, Pennsylvania. That's the Upattinas School. Do you allow people to come and visit and observe?
Yes, we do. We welcome that.
So there is an opportunity for our audience, and I would, correct me if I'm wrong, I would designate her school as a democratic, multi-age, integrated curriculum, beyond time, travel as part of the curriculum, justice and freedom. How am I doing?
You're doing beautifully. Keep going.
That's part of what I've seen and what I've observed from Sandy's group, and it is truly, truly the democratic process in action, with students learning how to take control of their own lives and their own learning, and to truly be lifelong learning. And you heard Sandy say the school has been in existence since 1971, successfully graduating students, many of whom no one wanted or no one could handle in the traditional schools. And so her school is not just a school for at-risk children, I don't want to say that, but it's a place where children have been able to find themselves, their direction in life, and their inner spirit and their inner soul. And observing her high school graduation last Friday moved me just to tears with the kinds of love and affection the students displayed for their school and for the process that they went through as a learning community, which is what Sandy's school is all about. It's a learning community. I wouldn't call it a school or anything like that. It's a learning community and a supportive one. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate taking this time out in your busy schedule. And we have 1 minute to go, so we'll be letting you know that Sandy is director of Upattinas School in Glenmore, Pennsylvania. You can reach her at 610-458-5138. Or you can write to the National Coalition of Alternative Community Schools, 1266 Rosewood Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104. This is Daria Brzezinski, Dr. Daria Brzezinski with Children Come First, WAAT 750 AM on your radio dial. And we have spent the morning with Sandy Hurst. We'd like to thank you and welcome you and to join us again next week from 10 to 11 a.m. and every Tuesday from 10 to 11 a.m. on WAAT for Children Come First, where we talk about children, education, holistic health, and family living, everything that's involved with children. So please join us, and we welcome our listeners to call in at any time at 570-639-2931. That's 570-639-2931. We're here every Tuesday, and if you'd like us to interview anyone, and if you have any suggestions, give us a call and let us know, and we will be happy to inform you about any of our other speakers that will be coming online. Thank you again, Sandy.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
And I look forward to visiting your school again.
I look forward to that, too.
Join us again next week for Children Come First.